So I created a pretty detailed guide on putting a Dell Windows 7 January 2020 reinstallation USB together for up to 6th generation Dell Intel hardware. And from time to time I get asked how to do this for other OEMs, such as Lenovo and HP. So in this video I'm going to modify the Dell base guide to apply to a Lenovo ThinkCentre P320 Tiny. So the first thing we need is the Windows 7 ISO download tool. And the Windows 7 ISO download tool offers 3 different Windows 7 ISOs. It offers 2 from Microsoft, Windows 7, ones which are the original Windows 7 Service Pack 1 downloads from 2011, but due to the way the Microsoft website works, these downloads are unreliable and only work on certain days of a month. And then there's the Windows 7 August 2018 ISOs, which are only available in English language and have been modified. And the modifications of these ISOs make them not suitable to work with for the sake of this tutorial video. So I'm going to go for the Dell Windows 7 ISO, and we'll need to select a model. And it doesn't really matter what model you select, as long as you select a model with Windows 7 support, because regardless of what model you select, you'll get the same ISO. So once you've selected the model and Windows 7 64-bit, you'll be able to generate a download link. So as you see on the left hand side, the download link is directly to the Dell server. And the Windows ISO download tool essentially generates this 24-hour time limited token. And we need this to actually access the download link. So once you've downloaded the ISO, you're going to want to download Rufus and just check the ISO checksums, because it's quite a large file and you just want to make sure that the ISO is complete. So launch Rufus, accept the user account control prompt, select the ISO and then check the checksums. And the SHA-256 should match the SHA-256 shown in the Windows ISO download tool. Okay, so now right click the ISO and select Mount. And then what we want to do is just create a new folder on the desktop called Win7 and copy all of the contents of the Windows 7 ISO to this folder. Okay, so next let's open up the downloads folder, and I'm going to go to the written guide and just have a look at some files that we need to download. Now I've downloaded them all in advance just to save time, but the download links are all here. So we need these F6 SATA drivers, and we need also USB 3.0 drivers. So we want to launch the install and extract them to the desktop. So let's extract the USB 3 drivers and let's extract the SATA drivers. And then within these extracted folders, we're interested only in the 64-bit drivers. So I'm going to create a new folder called boot drivers, and I'm going to copy the 64-bit drivers, which correspond to Windows 7, to this boot drivers folder. And you just want to make sure that you get all the 64-bit drivers. So the boot drivers folder should look as follows. Okay, so the next thing we need is a series of Windows 7 64-bit standalone updates. So typically you'll just need the blue download links, as the red ones are for Windows 7 without Service Pack 1 installation media, and this installation media has Service Pack 1 already, so we don't need to bother with these. Now, two of the updates are contained within the Windows image tool. We're not actually going to use this Windows image tool, but we want to extract the two updates and copy them to the updates folder. Okay, so in the next case, you can either be generic and just use the drivers within the boot drivers folder, or if your OEM has a Windows 7 64-bit driver pack like this ThinkStation P320 does, then we can just download this driver pack and then just follow the on-screen instructions to extract it to a folder of your choice. So let's just call this install drivers. And the next thing we're going to need is the Microsoft.NET Framework 4.72. So this isn't going to be in the updates folder because we need to install it slightly differently. Now we're going to look at changing the Dell Windows 7 installation media to be generic installation media. So there's a file within the sources called ei.cfg, and if you open it up with Notepad, you see it's locked to professional and to an OEM. Within the sources folder, there's a $OEM folder, which has a subfolder $setup and then scripts. So the main script is the out-of-the-box experience script, and it calls this system locked pre-installation script. So it installs the Dell Windows 7 cert file and the Dell Windows 7 Professional OEM locked system pre-installation key. So neither of these will apply to a non-Dell PC, but luckily I've got a collection of the OEM system locked pre-installation key along with the associated certs. So since this is a Lenovo, let's select 7 Professional, and then we want to copy this OEM folder. And basically, if we open the script file, we see that it's very similar, and it installs the Lenovo cert and the Lenovo OEM system locked pre-installation key instead. Now, this script file isn't automatic. Post-installation, we'll need to copy this OEM folder to the C drive and then manually run the script. So, in order to remove Dell OEM customization, we're going to delete the $OEM folder and all the subfolders within it. And we're going to copy just directly to the USB flash drive the OEM folder, and we'll use this post installation as mentioned. Okay, so now we want to install NT7Lite. So let's just go ahead and install it and then select OK. So we're going to go to the top left and select Add Image Directory and then select the Windows 7 folder. Then we're going to select the boot, and then we're going to select the second index of the boot. To the left hand side, we're going to select drivers, and we're going to add a directory, and this is going to be the boot driver folder. And then we're going to select apply and then process the changes. So within the sources folder is the boot.wim, and as the name suggests, it's important for booting to the USB flash drive. Now, if it doesn't have USB 3.0 drivers included, then it won't actually be able to find a USB flash drive, and installation will essentially freeze at the start of it. So once this is done, close down NTLite and relaunch it. And this time, select your index. In this case, I'm going to install Windows 7 Professional as I'm performing downgrade writes from Windows 10 Professional. And to the left hand side, I'm going to select Update. And I'm going to add a directory. And it's going to be the Updates directory. And in the case of the Professional edition, because Dell already have some updates here, it's not going to need all the ones we downloaded. The other editions don't have these updates, so they will need them. So next we're going to go to drivers and then add to the directory, and this is going to be the install.wim drivers. So this will make the installation media system specific. If you don't want the installation media to be system specific, then use the drivers within the boot drivers folder instead. And this will give you basically a bare bones minimum for up to 6th generation Intel hardware. But if you have the driver pack, it's better to make a system specific installation media, as it will save a lot of time. So the next thing we're going to go to is the post setup. And here we're going to add the Microsoft.Framework 4.7.2. And we just need to add a switch, which is the / and then Q, to quietly install it. So this will quietly install the Microsoft.NET Framework just before the initial login of Windows 7. Unfortunately, there's no other easy way of slipstreaming it directly into the Windows 7 installation media. Otherwise, we would do that. Okay, so now go to Apply, select Create ISO, and then just create the name for the ISO on the desktop. And then select Save. And then create a volume label for the ISO. And then select OK. Okay, so then select Process. And it's going to warn about Windows Defender, but we can just ignore this. And we can proceed even with Windows Defender on. It should be fast enough. So it's going to go through the process of slipstreaming the updates, and then slipstreaming the drivers, and then adding the Microsoft.NET Framework to the post setup. And then it's going to go ahead and create the ISO file. Okay, so once this is done, we can close NTLite, and then we can launch Rufus, and we can go ahead and make the bootable USB. So we'll need to select our new ISO, and then insert a 16GB USB flash drive. Now, if you're using a computer with 3rd to 6th generation Intel hardware, then select the GPT partition scheme, as we'll install Windows 7 using a UEFI boot. If you've got an old computer, so a 2009 or 2010 model, you're going to want to select MBR, which is necessary for older computers that only have a legacy boot. So in this case, I'm going to install this on the P320, which has a UEFI BIOS and a 6th generation Intel Skylake processor. So I'm going to use GPT. So once you've made the options, select Start and then accept the warning to format your USB flash drive, noting that you'll lose all data on your USB flash drive, of course. So once Rufus is done, it will say ready. And in this case, it will also give you some warning about secure boot. So you can just close this. And we'll now go ahead and move the USB flash drive to the system that we want to clean install Windows 7 on. So in this case, this is going to be the ThinkStation P320 Tiny. So let's insert this bootable USB and power up the Lenovo ThinkStation P320 Tiny and press F1 to get to the UEFI BIOS setup. The first thing you need to do is go to Security and then Secure Boot, and Secure Boot must be disabled. Next you want to go to Startup and you want to go to CSM and enable it, and then set the boot mode to be UEFI. If we go to Devices, we'll just want to make sure that the SATA operation is correct. So it's just got a single NVMe SSD, so the SATA operation should be HCI in this case. So I'm happy with the UEFI BIOS settings, so now I'm going to save and exit. And now I'll need to power up the Lenovo and press F12 to get to the boot menu. And now I can select the UEFI SanDisk Partition 2, which is the Windows 7 installation media. So you'll see Windows is loading files for quite some time, and then you'll see the starting Windows screen. And then, as the installation media is multilingual, you'll have the option to select your language. So I'll select English, and then I'll select English United Kingdom for the time and currency format. So I'll go ahead and select Install Now. And we'll see setup is starting. Next, you just want to select your edition. So in this case, it'll be Professional. And ignore the dates here because the date modified doesn't get updated by NTLite. So it's just original dates that Dell had for this installation media. So we're going to want to go ahead and select Custom Install. And then we're going to go ahead and delete all the partitions. And then we're going to proceed with the Windows 7 installation. So it'll spend some time to copy the files, to expand the files, to install the features, to install the updates, and to complete the installation. So you'll get a 10-second countdown and you'll be told that the computer will restart. Now in the case of this Lenovo, I needed to remove the Windows 7 USB flash drive, otherwise I just got automatically booted to the start of the install again, booting from the USB flash drive, so you end up in a loop. So if you take the Windows 7 bootable USB out, then it will directly boot to the Windows 7 install on the drive, in this case a NVMe SSD. So once it's restarted, it'll proceed with completing the installation. And here you should see the screen flicker because the graphics driver will be installed, because it's incorporated into the Windows 7 installation media. So the install will restart again and you'll see some screens about checking the video performance. And this time, because all the drivers are installed, you'll actually get an accurate Windows Experience Index. So input your username and computer name, and then select Next, and then optionally input a password. In this screen, uncheck Automatically Activate Windows when I'm online, and then select Skip. We'll address product activation in a minute. For Windows Update, you can select Ask Me Later, although it doesn't matter what setting you pick because there's no more updates. Select your time zone, and in this case, as the network drivers are installed and an Ethernet's plugged in, it'll automatically connect to the internet. Now Windows 7 is of course at end of life, so it's ill-advised to connect Windows 7 to the internet because it's not safe to continue using end-of-life operating system online. So Windows 7 is finalizing your settings will then show, and it may take a moment for this to show because what's actually happening is the Microsoft.NET Framework 4.7.2 is being installed quietly in the background. So once this is done, you'll see preparing your desktop. And now, if we go to the Start button and right-click Computer and select Properties, we can go ahead and get to the Device Manager. And because we slipstreamed the entire driver pack for this system, you'll notice that all the drivers are installed. So the display adapters have the Intel and NVIDIA graphics. We've got the correct network adapter, and we've got the correct sound driver. Next, if we go to Control Panel and then Programs, we'll see what programs are pre-installed, and we'll also be able to check the updates. So let's select Programs, and we see we've got the Microsoft.NET Framework 4.7.2. And if we go to Updates, we'll actually see quite a long list. And that's because Dell added a number of updates for Windows 7 for the Professional Edition before the Convenience rollup was created. If you've used another edition, you'll get a smaller list of updates because we used the Convenience rollup. So basically this takes you to January 2020 as expected. Right, if we right click Computer and go to Properties, because we never input any product key and we skip this during installation, we'll have only 3 days to automatically activate Windows. So what we're going to do is insert the Windows 7 bootable USB, and remember we had copied this OEM folder to it. So what we're going to do is copy and paste this OEM folder directly to C, and right click the slp.cmd file and select Run as Administrator. And then we're just going to follow the on-screen prompts, and it will install the Lenovo certificate, and then change the product key to the Lenovo Windows 7 Professional OEM system locked pre-installation key. So if we go to Start and right click Computer and then go to Properties, we see we're activated using OEM system locked pre-installation, and the product ID contains OEM 899 as expected. Now, product activation will only occur if you're using this on a Windows 7 system or a system that's licensed to run Windows 7 using OEM downgrade rights. So it won't work on an old Vista model in most cases, and remember it's only the professional editions of Windows 10 and 8.1 that have OEM downgrade rights. So in order to understand the activation mechanism in more detail, we're going to download a program called Read Write Everything Portable, and we'll go ahead and launch it. So within the UEFI BIOS, there's a thing called an ACPI table. So if we go to Access and then ACPI tables, we can view it. And what we're interested in is this SLIC tab, so System License Internal Code. And within this tab, it will tell you what the OEM is, and it will also tell you the System License Internal Code version. So for Windows 7 Professional activation, it has to be 2.1. And if it's version 2.0, then your system is only licensed to run Windows Vista using OEM locked system pre-installation. Okay, so if we go to Start and restart the computer. After the first restart, you'll be nagged by Microsoft, and Microsoft will just nag you to let you know that Windows 7 has now reached end of life, and they will recommend that you buy a new Windows 10 PC. So at this nag, you can just select Don't Remind Me Again, and otherwise you should have a Windows 7 installation up and running with complete driver support and with the proper OEM system locked pre-installation activation mechanism in place.